So we're going to go ahead and call the Senate committee, the joint subcommittee on general government to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Assemblywoman Backus, Assemblywoman Brown-May, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblyman Miller, Assemblyman O'Neill, Senator Goycochea, Senator Harris, Assemblywoman Peters, Chair Neal.
Here. Okay, with that, so we have a series of closings today. We will start with Administrative Services Budget 4554, and I will turn it over to our fiscal analyst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the subcommittee. Nicolette Johnston, Fiscal Analysis Division. Today, the subcommittee will be closing 13 Department of Agriculture budget accounts. 4 have been previously heard and 9 are recommended for staff close. The first of the 4 budget accounts, as previously heard on March 7th, is Budget Account 4554 for the Division of Administrative Services. This division provides oversight and guidance to all program and activities, as well as provides accounting, payroll, fiscal, planning, and other support services to the department. The first major issue is funding for additional operating costs. The Governor recommends cost allocation reimbursements of $46,383 in FY 2024 and $60,465 in FY 2025 for one new full-time administrative assistant position and associated operating costs to support the front desk at the department's Las Vegas office. The department currently utilizes a contract administrative assistant position to provide administrative support, which requires the department to pay a 34% market fee in addition to the contract position's hourly wage. The new position is budgeted to start October 1st, 2023. The department advises the full-time contract administrative assistant position is currently funded with the Agriculture Registration Enforcement Budget Account 4545, as the position provides significant support for the Division of Plant Health and Compliance relating to pesticides registration and testing. Following the budget hearing on March 7th, the department confirmed that should the recommended full-time administrative assistant position be approved in this budget, a technical adjustment in the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget would be needed to eliminate the annual costs of $55,000 in each year of the 23-25 biennium for the contract position. However, because the position is not budgeted to begin until October 1st, the department confirms the costs for the contract administrative assistant position should only be offset by $42,047 in FY 2024 and $55,000 in FY 2025 in the Agriculture Registration Enforcement budget, in order to leave 3 months of contract costs of $12,953 in FY 2024 to continue funding the contract administrative assistant position until the full-time administrative assistant position begins October 1st, 2023. This technical adjustment will be requested in the closing document for the Agriculture Registration Enforcement Budget Account 4545, contingent upon the subcommittee's recommendation for approval of the full-time administrative assistant position in this budget. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of cost allocation reimbursements of $46,383 in FY 2024 and $60,465 in FY 2025 for one new full-time administrative assistant position and associated costs to support the front desk at the department's Las Vegas office as recommended by the Governor?
Thank you for that. Are there any questions on this decision unit? Senator Goycochea.
Thank you. More of a comment than a question, Madam Chair, because this is gets kind of tough. Because the director of the Department of Ag is definitely within the 3 degrees, or 4 or 5 degrees, or wherever you want to be. But anyway, as long as they are GovRec, I feel comfortable voting with them. But anytime we move away from them, I probably will abstain just to avoid any impropriety. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments on the decision? So I will take a motion for GovRec on the recommendation for the admin assistant. So moved. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters. I have a second from Senator Harris. All right, so I have a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of passing the subcommittee recommendation for the admin assistant and the reimbursements and any associated costs to support the front desk department of the Las Vegas office as recommended by the governor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision passes. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. The second major issue is funding for additional operating costs. The governor recommends a general fund appropriation of $50,000 in FY 2024 and cost allocation reimbursements of $92,429 in each year of the 23-25 biennium to fund additional operating costs for contract staff, annual memberships, and buildings and grounds maintenance. Additional operating costs not included in the FY 2022 legislatively approved budget were incurred in FY 22. As the division anticipates these costs to be ongoing, the governor recommends an enhancement to include funding for these costs in the upcoming biennium. The governor's recommendation for funding of $234,858 over the biennium includes $50,000 for contract staff, $83,068 to fund a contract accounting position, $22,600 for 3 annual memberships, and $79,190 for buildings and grounds maintenance, such as janitorial and landscaping costs. Fiscal staff has identified concerns with the recommendation for the contract position funded with $50,000 in general fund appropriations. In regard to the recommendation of $50,000 in general fund appropriations in FY 2024 for contract staff, in correspondence with the department before and after the hearing on March 7th, as well as in testimony, the department indicated the $50,000 in general fund appropriations was intended to support the state meat inspection program, as per pages 4 through 6 of the closing packet. However, on Tuesday, April 18th, as the closing packet was being finalized, the governor's finance office contacted fiscal staff to confirm that contrary to the department's plan, the unexpended FY22 ARPA coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds of $55,123 and any remaining unexpended funds in FY 2023 in the state meat inspection programs as referenced in the table on page 5 of the closing packet could not be balanced forward for expenditure in FY 2024. When discussing the recommended general fund appropriation of $50,000 in FY 2024 to provide contracted fiscal support for the state meat inspection program, the governor's finance office indicated this funding is not recommended specifically for this program, but rather is recommended to provide additional contract fiscal staff for the Administrative Services Division as a whole. However, as of the finalization of the closing packet, the governor's finance office did not identify why the agency needs the recommended $50,000 in general fund appropriation in FY 2024 or the specific purpose for these funds. After the packet was finalized, the governor's finance office provided further confirmation that these funds are not intended for the state meat inspection program, rather to provide contract fiscal support for the whole department. Options for the subcommittee's consideration: A, recommend approval of a general fund appropriation of $50,000 in FY 2024 and cost allocation reimbursements totaling $184,858 over the 23-25 biennium to fund additional operating costs for contract staff, annual memberships, and buildings and grounds maintenance as recommended by the governor. Or B, recommend approval of $184,858 over the 23-25 biennium to fund additional operating costs for annual membership and buildings and grounds maintenance as recommended by the governor, and recommend the $50,000 in general fund appropriations be placed in the restricted IFC contingency fund account and direct the agency to request the funds from the IFC when specific uses of the funds have been identified. Or recommend approval of $184,858 over the 23-25 biennium to fund additional operating costs for annual membership and buildings and grounds maintenance as recommended by the governor, but do not recommend approval of the $50,000 in general fund appropriations in FY 2024 to fund contract fiscal staff.
Thank you for that. So I'd like to call the agency up to have more discussion on the $50,000.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Director Goicoechea for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic for the record.
Good morning. So in listening to fiscal statement, so it was our understanding that we were going to use this for meat inspection. It's not going to be used for that. It's going to be used for some other purposes. Can you further lay out on the record what the 50K would be used for?
Thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Mark Markovic, for the Record Administrative Services Officer for Department of Agriculture. Yes, there was a slight confusion on how that $50,000 will be used. Originally, a mistake was made, assuming that that $55,123 that was allocated from the state ARPA funds to the meat inspection program was planned on being carried over to the next fiscal year. And the confusion with this $50,000 is actually to help agency hire the contract staff to help us improve some procedures and policies that we identify as the issues and kind of strengthen the financial unit within the Department of Agriculture, help us implement better practices, and definitely work on improving how things are done. That was identified during this budget bill process.
Thank you for that. Can you, so you're saying you believe that the 55,124 would, that you were going to be able to use that, and so when you found out you can't carry it forward, you had 50K, you put $50,000 in there, because it seemed like the 50,000 was already in there from the beginning when we heard the budget at the first time in this subcommittee. So what are the improvements that you're planning on doing?
Thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record. So the $50,000 was in that original budget request that agency submitted. The $55,000 was a completely different amount that we are discussing here. We had a significant turnover in staff, so the team that actually built this budget was gone by the time the new team came on board and had to present this budget and testify. So there was a lack of information left behind on what certain amounts were allocated for or requested for. We did work with the Governor's Finance Office to identify any funds requested and purpose for those funds. That's how we identified that this $50,000 is a completely different request from $55,123 that we were planning on carrying forward for the meat inspection program into '24. The plan that department has for these $50,000 is to hire a contract position with a great fiscal experience and knowledge with the state systems to help us improve existing policies and procedures and strengthen our fiscal unit by helping us implement the best practices so we can move forward and do a better job next time around.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation on the record. So, committee, I'm going to recommend B, which is to recommend approval of the $184,858 over the 23-25 biennium to fund the additional operating costs and annual membership and buildings and grounds maintenance as recommended by the governor, and recommend that the $50,000 in the general fund appropriation be placed in a restricted IFC contingency account, and direct the agency to request the funds from IFC on specific uses of funds that have been identified to fiscal staff. Are there any discussion on this decision of B? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I probably will be abstaining from this vote, but I just want to make sure it's clear in my mind. All right, this does not impact the meat inspection program in any way. The $50,000 will be held by IFC for future staffing as it pertains to administration only.
That is correct.
Thank you, and I will be abstaining, but thank you, ma'am.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be a no on this because the $50,000, I feel like they should be able to have access to that without having to go to IFC and wait, so I will be a no on this vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So the reason why I'm going with B is because although the agency believed that they could carry forward the federal ARPA funds that they did not expend, that was not what was approved. And so this discrepancy and trying to figure out what the 50K was going to be used for to fiscal staff is still not clear. I mean, it's a little bit clear, but it's not super clear. We're not eliminating their access to the money. We're just holding on to it until they present more documentation that gives a really clear delineation of what the use will be if it's not going to be for the meat inspection program, because that's what we thought it was going to be applied to. Now it has a general or broader use. So with that, if there's any more discussion on the motion. So I'll take the motion for option B, which is the recommendation that I stated in holding the 50,000 in a restricted account for them to come back to IFC for the specific uses. Do I have a second? So I have a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? So seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So I have Assemblywoman Kansama and Assemblyman O'Neill, and then I have one abstention. And so motion passes on the Assembly side and the Senate side with the 2 members. All right, so thank you for that. We will move to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. Moving on to the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds. To summarize the table below, in regards to the State Meat Inspection Program, at the April 7th, 22 IFC meeting, the committee approved $55,123 as discussed in ARPA Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds for this program in FY 2022. On June 21st, the IFC approved an additional $330,000 in ARPA Coronavirus State Fiscal Funds to support 4 contract positions and operating costs to implement the Department State Meat Inspection Program in FY 2023. The governor included $331,062 in the base budget for FY 2024 to continue the State Meat Inspection Program. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of ARPA Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds of $331,062 in FY 2024 for the continued support of the Department's State Meat Inspection Program as recommended by the governor?
Thank you for that. Are there any questions on this decision unit? So I recommend, as stated by staff, can I get a motion to accept the ARPA recovery funds in FY '24 for continued support of the department's state meat inspection program as recommended by the governor?
So moved.
Do I have a second? So I have a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So this particular decision passes for the subcommittee. And so we will move to budget, what is it, 45? No, it's the other closing items? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 3 other closing items, and other closing item 3 is on March 4th, 2023, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A231354554, which recommends $100,593 in FY 2024 and $102,654 in FY 2025 for 1 new IT technician 6 position. The department currently utilizes a contract employee through GuideSoft, which charges a 47.6% contract fee. The department confirmed the contract IT position would need technical adjustments to eliminate the contract IT position of $107,401 in each year of the 23-25 biennium and 3 budgets supporting these costs as an offset. Those budgets supporting the contract IT position costs are agriculture registration enforcement, budget account 4545, pest, plant disease, noxious weed control, budget account 4552, and this budget, 4554, for a total of $107,401 $401 in each year. The division confirms the contract IT position would still be needed for the first 3 months in FY 2024 until the new full-time IT technician 6 position would begin October 1st. Therefore, the department and Governor's Finance Office concur that 3 months of funding totaling $25,600 in those respective budget accounts for contract IT position should remain in FY 2024. In summary, the cost of one new IT technician 6 position in the amount of $100,593 in FY 2024 and $102,654 in FY 2025 results in overall net additional cost of $18,792 in FY 2024 and a net savings of $4,747 in FY 2025. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 3 be closed as recommended in Budget Amendment A231354554 to add 1 full-time IT technician 6 position, with a noted technical adjustment to the budget amendment to offset position costs of $100,593 in FY 2024 and $102,654 in FY 2025, with a reduction of contract IT costs of $81,801 in FY 2024 and $107,401 in FY 2024 in the 3 budgets supporting the contract IT position costs. This results in overall net additional costs of $18,792 in FY 2024 and net savings of $4,747 in FY 2025 for the full-time IT technician 6 position. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you for that. Any questions on this particular decision? Okay, so I will accept a motion for fiscal staff recommendation to close items 1 and 2 as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 3 as recommended in the budget amendment, and then the authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Madam Chair, I would make the motion. I just want to point out in the summary on our sheets today, though, we have an error at $107,401 in fiscal year 2025 is how that's supposed to read. Just want to make sure that that's clear on the record. But I would make the motion as stated by staff.
So, do we have comments on that number?
I'm sorry, could you please clarify the question?
Just the year in the notes.
That is correct. The 107,000 offset would be in FY 2025, whereas the 81,000 would be in FY 2024.
Thank
Madam
you
Chair,
for that.
I apologize. Can I just point 1 small error in the recommendation?
Go ahead.
It states twice fiscal year 24 in the recommendation. Oh.
Fiscal?
I believe that's what we just clarified. Thank you.
Okay, so I will take a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? So now that we know what will be applied in '24. Okay, so with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no opposition, that decision unit passes. We will go to the next budget, which is now 4545, correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. Next budget accounts, 4545, Agriculture Registration and Enforcement. This budget supports the registration, inspection, sampling, and laboratory analysis of fertilizers and pesticide products offered for sale. There are 3 major closing issues. The first major closing issue is insufficient budget, operating reserve levels, and solvency concerns. The executive budget includes operating levels, reserve levels declining in the 23-25 biennium in this budget, resulting from expenditures being higher than the budgeted revenues. As recommended by the governor, operating reserve levels decreased by $2.2 million or 181-day reserve in FY 2023 to 1.5 million or 114-day reserve in FY 2024 and to $742,190 with a 56-day reserve in FY 2025. While this budget, as recommended, has sufficient operating reserves through the upcoming biennium to meet its 45-day optimal operating reserve level, over the 3-year period, the reserves declined by almost half in each year. During the March 7th, with the projected declining ending reserve balances, recommended expenditures exceed projected revenues in the governor's budget, and as such, fee revenues are not sufficient to fully support the operational costs in this budget. During the March 7th budget hearing, the department testified there were no immediate plans to increase fees in this budget. When asked when fees in this budget were approved for an increase, the department indicated that they were after responding that as after LCB file R099-AB was adopted in April 2022, this is when the fees were raised as noted below on page 12. Following the budget hearing, the agency provided updated revenue projections for several revenue sources and associated expenditures. Combined, the technical adjustments entered by fiscal staff increased total revenues by $229,636 in FY 2024 and $87,195 in FY 2025. The adjustment table on page 16 reflects total revenue and expenditure increases of approximately $101,000 in FY 2025, which is comprised of the revenue increases of approximately $87,000 and a balance forward amount of approximately $14,000. The Governor's Finance Office and Department concur with this technical adjustment. Based on the updated revenue estimates and associated expenditures, ending reserve levels in FY 2024 are projected to continue to exceed the optimum 45-day level at 110 days, or $1.5 million in reserve, while ending reserve levels in FY 2024 are projected to slightly exceed the optimum 45-day level at 58 days, or approximately $778,000 in reserve. While this budget is projected to have sufficient revenues in FY 2024 to fund the recommended cost of living adjustments as recommended by the governor or compensation consideration discussion at the March 30th, 2023 joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance, the department may encounter difficulty funding such salary and benefit increases in FY 2025 and beyond unless the department is able to align its revenue and expenditures in this budget. Due to solvency concerns in this budget for future biennia, the subcommittee may wish to consider issuing a letter of intent directing the agency to develop a long-term sustainable plan to align this budget's revenues and expenditures to be submitted for consideration by the Interim Finance Committee no later than the June 2024 meeting. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the noted technical adjustments to update projected revenues relating operating expenditures and reserves, which result in a combined projected revenue increase of $229,636 in FY 2024 and $87,195 in FY 2025? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend a letter of intent directing the agency to develop a long-term sustainable plan to align this budget's revenues and expenditures to be submitted for consideration by the Interim Finance Committee no later than the June 2024 meeting?
No, because I have some questions. So, thank you, staff. So I have a couple of questions on this before we close it. So in terms of I know that we had got information on there's equipment that is, I believe, 14 years old, and you guys are getting is that a part of this, getting the warranty, or is that the next one? Never mind. So then I'll stick with the one question on have you guys contemplated what your sustainability plan is going to be to sustain revenues?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Director Goycochea. For the record, yes, over the last 90 days, we have done a deep dive into several budgets, this one being the most pressing, when we did realize that it was not going to remain solvent the way that it was proposed. So we are creating plans on how we are going to go forward, and we'll be more than happy to present that report to IFC no later than June 24.
Okay. So you don't have any, detail you'd like to put on the record, just maybe one or two sentences that's related to the plan?
Madam Chair, again, Director Goycochea, for the record, part of this, again, was fiscal staff turnover and errors in how budgets were closed in the previous years. We have realized those problems, and we are rectifying those. I do believe that as we close these budgets going forward, it will not be nearly as severe as what is projected on here. And again, we won't know that until after the legislature has adjourned and we get into our budget closing. But if Marco cares to embellish on that, I will allow him to do so.
Thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record. During the state fiscal year 22 close, there was several revenue streams that were funded with the federal funds that were not timely drawn in. The process for bringing these federal funds is a little bit cumbersome, and it requires the actual manual submission of the backup paperwork that is then reviewed by our USDA partners before they approve and send the wire transfer back to us. So it was a timely issue when the funds were transferred. The other identified issue was that the draws were not done throughout the year due to turnover in the fiscal staff that basically was done only at the end and the closing of the fiscal year, which resulted in some negative amounts that were offsetted with reserves and the fees, unrestricted fees, which then led to adjustments to the revenue for the 24-25 biennium. So we identified these ones. We are having plan on the draws. We are working with our federal partners, and we are planning on doing monthly draws for the remaining of this fiscal year to ensure this doesn't occur again with the close of state fiscal year 23.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so we're missing a member, so let's just do a 1-minute recess, and then she should be back. And then we will do the motion on the decision. Go ahead, Senator Goycochea.
Yes, thank you. Just a comment. As I'm looking at this, so again, it looks like they are maintaining the 45-day reserve. It's just close, right?
Well, I think what is going to happen is related to the next decision unit, my understanding.
Right.
Is that, if something was to happen, they would not be in a good position.
Right, but at this point, as far as we are, it looks like they are still semi-solvent.
Okay. I'll go with that. Senator Goycochea, semi-solvent is the word of the day. All right, so we'll take a 1-minute recess and wait on Senator Harris. That's where I'm at.
That's what I don't, they want to take me up to this issue, but it's time to leave it.
All right. It's not. Okay. No, we're not there yet. All right. Okay. Is there any further comments on the decision unit? So the decision is to recommend approval of the noted technical adjustments to update the projected revenues relating to operating expenditures and reserves, which will result in the combined projected revenue increase of $229,636 in FY '24 and $87,195 in FY '25, and the subcommittee wishing to recommend a letter of intent directing the agency to develop a long-term sustainable plan to align this budget's revenues and expenditures to be submitted for consideration to the IFC no later than June 2024. So any discussions on that? So seeing none, I will accept a motion.
So moved.
So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, I have a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? All-
Madam Chair, I will be abstaining.
Okay, so we have Senator Gocochea abstaining. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes. So we will move to the next decision unit. I believe we're on page, what, 15? 13? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. On page 13, the second major closing issue is the update on the accreditation of the chemistry lab. The governor recommends reserve reductions of $24,860 over the 23-25 biennium for costs of a laboratory assessment and inspection to achieve accreditation through the International Organization for Standardization, also referred to as ISO. The department states the ISO accreditation of the chemistry laboratory is required per federal requirements and would provide further verification that laboratory practices are precise and consistent. The 2021 legislature approved total funding of $33,007 over the 21-23 biennium for costs to obtain ISO accreditation for the laboratory. During the 2021 legislative session, the department explained that the accreditation would be a multi-year process, and the laboratory would need to be audited on an annual basis to maintain its accreditation. The department further testified it anticipates the laboratory's ISO accreditation would be completed by the end of the 21-23 biennium. Due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, the department was unable to utilize the accrediting entity to perform the pre-ISO accreditation audit as planned. However, the department was able to hire a third-party contract inspector. During the March 7th budget hearing, the department was asked to provide an updated timeline to obtain the ISO accreditation for the laboratory. In response, the agency confirmed it anticipates the ISO accreditation process would take a couple of years to achieve, as it's a rigorous process. The subcommittee also inquired about the major findings of the preliminary inspection and assessment of the department's chemistry laboratory conducted by the third-party auditor. The department summarized key 4 points from the report, which are summarized on page 14 of the closing packet. The department stated it has also encountered challenges in scheduling as the ISO auditors perform these pre-assessment of the department's laboratory because there are limited providers. And it's rare to pass on the first assessment the first time. So it's essential that the pre-assessment audit is conducted. And the department noted its goal is to have this pre-assessment performed in FY 2023, which would allow the actual assessment to be performed in calendar year 2025 with the goal to achieve accreditation in calendar year 2025. The department further indicated that once accredited, it anticipates ongoing annual costs of $3,930 to maintain this accreditation. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation of reserve reductions of $8,565 in FY 2024 and $16,295 in FY 2025 for costs of a laboratory assessment and inspection to achieve accreditation of the department's laboratory through the International Organization for Standardization?
Members, is there any discussion on this particular decision? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion for governor's recommendation.
So moved.
So a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The third major closing issue on page 14 is maintenance and calibration contracts for the chemistry laboratory equipment. The governor recommends Federal Environmental Protection Agency pesticide enforcement grant funds of $3,705 and reserve reductions of $86,146 in FY 2024 to fund 2 maintenance and calibration contracts to ensure chemistry equipment is properly maintained and timely repair is available. The maintenance and calibration contracts would prevent system malfunctions and delay in sample analysis that are used for protecting the public and environmental health. In testimony provided to the Legislative Commission's Budget Subcommittee, the agency indicated that it currently owns 2 instruments, one acquired in 2009 and the other in 2021. The agency states that the instrument acquired in 2009 is currently not covered by a maintenance contract and is beginning to show signs of failure. The agency notes there have been situations where time-sensitive samples have been disposed of and chemists have had to spend time trying to identify and repair issues, which could have likely been avoided through regular scheduled maintenance. The second instrument, acquired in 2021, is currently covered by a maintenance contract that is due to expire in 2024. As further justification, the agency advises the purchase of new equipment would cost $543,904, whereas a 2-year maintenance contract for the 2009 mass spectrometer instrument is estimated at a cost of $33,371, and a 3-year maintenance contract for the 2021 mass spectrometer is estimated at a cost of $50,055. During the March 7th budget hearing, the agency testified that the recommended useful life of a mass spectrometer is 10 years. Following the hearing, fiscal staff asked why the department would purchase a maintenance contract for a 14-year-old piece of equipment that is beyond its useful life, as opposed to retiring the 2009 mass spectrometer and purchasing a new one. The department responded that it opted to purchase a maintenance contract to extend the life of the 2009 mass spectrometer until the department could reevaluate revenue projections for the 25-27 biennium. The department further noted that the maintenance contract is the department's best option for extending the useful life.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
Oh.
Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommendation of Federal Environmental Protection Agency pesticide enforcement grant funds of $3,705 and reserve reductions of $86,146 in FY 2024 to fund maintenance and calibration contracts for chemistry equipment?
Thank you for that. So I have questions on the maintenance contract for the 2009. So what exactly would that maintenance contract cover? And I guess it'd be important to know what shape or how bad of shape is that particular instrument from 2009? And will that warranty be enough to cover it? I just see it as like trying to get if I had a 2009 car, and this is a horrible example, and my transmission went out, and then I'm like, well, I'd like to get it covered now. I know it's on its last leg. Will you cover it? What will be the plan that I'm going to be given?
For the record, Ashley Jepson, Division Administrator for Plant Health and Compliance with the Department of Agriculture. Right now, it is functioning fairly well. We have really tried to be diligent about training our staff in maintaining what they can, but they're limited in what they're able to do. So this contract would allow somebody to come in on a routine basis and really get ahead of any major malfunctions that could happen while also responding timely. When we do have a major issue with the performance of the equipment, getting somebody in quickly is a major issue. When we have the maintenance contracts, it does allow for them to get scheduled to get there, and they're well aware of some of the previous issues that they may have worked on to keep that equipment running. So we do feel confident that this will allow us to get to our next biennium, and hopefully our reserve budget will allow for us to officially replace the equipment. I think replacement is about $550,000 roughly. So that's kind of why we are asking for the maintenance.
Thank you for that. Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my concern is, again, I understand your maintenance contract, but again, some of these tests you are running are very time sensitive. The crops you're running them on, again, cannabis and some of these hemps, really does give us some real exposure as far as liability. So I guess I can see them coming back and, suing you for 1,000 acres of cannabis would be very expensive. because it was a malfunction. So, you know, this equipment's got to work. You're telling us you think the maintenance contract will buy you the 2 more years.
For the record, Ashley Jepson, that is correct. And we do have the secondary equipment. We do have the 2021. Ideally, you know, samples, it takes a while for them to run. So we always want to have a backup that we're running for investigations, for resampling. So they oftentimes are running together. But we do have the backup with the 2021, and this maintenance contract is covering both of those equipment. So we have tried to plan to make sure that we're covering all our bases.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Peters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You guys are already going to go through the process, or you've told us today that you're going through the process to look at how to get the next redundancy, how to replace this piece of equipment, or what to do next. And I think that because we've kind of kicked this can down the road a couple sessions now, I would like to see you guys come in the interim to let us know how that process is going, so that we can keep up with this going into the next fiscal year, and see where we're at with whether there are grants available out there, or if it has to be general funded, or if you have some solvency in one of your programs, maybe, that we could offset some of those costs and get you guys that piece of equipment early on. But I would like to entertain recommendation for a letter of intent to hear from you in the interim on this piece as well.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to approve the governor's recommendation of the federal EPA agency pesticide enforcement grant funds and reserve reductions, and also to fund maintenance and calibration contracts for chemistry equipment, and to do a letter of intent on the plan, how the warranty is working out for the older equipment. Hopefully we can as well think about in the full committee if there's anything that we can do to try to achieve some kind of address this issue of this old equipment. But the motion is everything but my last statement, which is the letter of intent. So any discussion on that motion? I'll take a first.
So moved.
So a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, and then all in favor of this decision?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes. We'll go to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. There are 6 other closing items. And other closing item 5, the governor's recommended base budget includes funding for a contract to support a contract administrative assistant position in the Las Vegas office, as previously heard in budget account 4554. As approved in that budget, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment in this budget to decrease contract expenditures by $42,047 in FY 2024 and $55,000 in FY 2025, with a corresponding increase to reserves in each year. In item 6, the governor's recommended base budget includes partial funding in this budget account to support a contract IT technician 6 position, as previously heard in budget account 4554. As approved in the department's administrative services budget, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment in this budget to decrease contract expenditures by $46,126 in FY 2024 and $60,562 in FY 2025, with a corresponding increase to reserves in each year. Fiscal staff recommends that other closing items 1 through 4 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 5 be closed with a noted technical adjustment, contingent upon the recommended approval of Decision Unit E232 and the department's administrative services budget, and the other closing item 6 be closed with a noted technical adjustment contingent upon the recommended approval of budget amendment A231354554 in the department's administrative services budget. Fiscal staff also requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Any discussion on this decision unit? Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion for fiscal staff to do other closing items 1 through 4 as recommended by the governor, other closing item 5 with noted technical adjustments contingent upon recommended approval of decision unit E232, and then other closing item 6 to be closed with technical adjustments contingent upon the budget amendment. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next budget account is 4550 Veterinary Medical Services. This is on page 17 of the closing packet. This budget provides diagnostic services to protect domestic and wild animals from communicable, infectious, nutritional, and parasitic diseases, and works to protect people from animal diseases that are transmittable to humans. There is one major closing issue identified in this budget, that is one new unclassified deputy administrator position. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $104,381 in FY 2024 and $134,554 in FY 2025 to fund one new unclassified deputy administrator position to assist in managing the 6 programs within the Division of Animal Industry. The department indicates that duties of the division administrator have increased and that a new deputy administrator would assist the division administrator in managing those 6 programs. According to the department, the division administrator oversees all program operations, human resource activities, budget management, as well as manages 62 state employees, 26 contracted part-time employees, and a budget of approximately $6.3 million. And it has been becoming increasingly difficult for the division administrator to perform all duties in a timely fashion. Duties of the new deputy administrator position would include overseeing human resource-related tasks as well as helping the administrator in providing program oversight, management, budgeting, and division progress tracking. Additionally, the funding source for the new deputy administrator position is recommended as 100% general fund appropriations. However, the agency has confirmed the correct funding source allocation should be 24% general fund appropriations and 76% cost allocation reimbursement. During the March 7th budget hearing, the department testified that the dairy fund and food safety program were added to the division in the 21-23 biennium, which increased the number of employees, laboratory testing, and inspections under the division. As such, the department stated that it has become difficult for this division administrator to manage these additional duties. The department provided testimony that the division administrator's time is primarily dedicated to these read that. Additionally, the department indicated that the restructuring of the livestock inspection program during the 21-23 biennium which transitioned contract brand inspectors to intermittent state employees has also increased the administrator's workload. If the subcommittee wishes to approve the governor's recommendation for the addition of a new deputy administrator position, fiscal staff would recommend a technical adjustment to revise the funding source in support of the position from 100% general fund appropriations as recommended by the governor to a combination of 24% general fund and 76% cost allocation reimbursements, which would result in general fund savings of $79,330 in FY 2024 and $102,185 in FY 2025. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of one new unclassified deputy administrator position to assist in managing the 6 programs within the Division of Animal Industry for a total cost of $104,381 in FY 2024 and $134,454 in FY 2025, inclusive of the noted technical adjustment to revise the funding source from 100% general fund appropriations as recommended by the governor to 24% general fund appropriations of $25,051 in FY 2024 and $32,269 in FY 2025, and 76% cost allocation reimbursements of $79,330 in FY 2024 and $102,185 in FY 2025, which would result in general fund savings of $79,330 in FY 2024 and $102,185 in FY 2025.
Any comments on this decision unit? Senator Gokachia?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be abstaining on this as well, but I can only speak to clearly the need for the administrator, especially livestock inspection side of this program, needs some help. They need some oversight, so I will be abstaining, but that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments? All right, so I'll take a motion to recommend the approval of one unclassified deputy administrator position to assist in managing the 6 programs within the division, and also the noted technical adjustment to revise the funding source from the 100% general fund to a reduction. So I will take a motion. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 4 other closing items. Another closing item 4 is a salary adjustment for division administrator. The governor recommends a salary increase of $14,522 in FY 2024 and $14,523 in FY 2025 for the unclassified division administrator position in the Division of Animal Industry to align the division administrator's salary with the salaries of the 4 other division administrator positions in the department. The salary increase is recommended to be funded by general fund appropriations of $3,485 and cost allocation reimbursements of $11,037 in FY 2024 and general fund appropriations of $3,486 and cost allocation reimbursements of $11,037 in FY 2025. Decisions pertaining to unclassified salaries and position changes will be determined by the money committees when the pay bill is considered. Staff requests authority to make any adjustments subsequently required. And other closing item 4, the governor recommends general fund appropriations of $16,416 in FY 2024 to fund long-term fleet services leases to replace 2 existing agency-owned vehicles. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to allocate general fund appropriations of $5,472 in FY 2024 and $10,944 in FY 2025. As the department indicates, it inadvertently funded the full cost of the fleet services lease in FY 2024. This adjustment would not change the total overall cost. It would just align to each fiscal year. Both the governor's finance office and agency concur with this technical adjustment. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing items 3 and 4 be closed with a noted technical adjustment. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so the decision unit is going to be adjusted, so we will, I want a discussion on, so we're going to close items 1 and 2 and 4 and defer 3 because it's dependent upon the pay bill. So is there any discussion on that decision? Okay, seeing no discussion on that, I will accept a motion for fiscal staff recommendation to close items 1 and 2 as recommended by the governor, item 4 with the noted technical adjustments, and defer 3, and fiscal staff request the authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? So seeing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes as recommended. Okay, next.
The next budget account is 4546, livestock inspection. This program is responsible for protecting livestock owners from loss of livestock by enforcing inspection and brand statutes, returning as stray livestock, and licensing livestock dealers, agents, buyers, and public sale yards, and is also responsible for investigating livestock thefts and performing a road interdiction program, which seeks to prevent the ingress-egress of livestock that have not met the mandated requirements of both animal health and livestock identification. There is one major closing issue, which is the update on the implementation of the business plan to restructure the livestock inspection program. The governor recommends ending reserve balances inclusive of all decision units of $1.1 million for FY 2024 and $739,810 for FY 2025 for the livestock inspection budget. Due to concerns regarding the livestock inspection budget's long-term solvency over the past several biennia, the 2019 legislature issued a letter of intent directing the agency to develop a long-term plan to line its revenue and expenditure. The agency developed this plan during the 2019-21 interim to restructure this program. While the 2021 legislature approved SB 454, which revised Chapter 564 of the statute to increase the brand re-recording fee from $120 every 4 years to $200 every 5 years, the legislature did not approve other recommended enhancements to implement various aspects of the restructuring program. Instead, the 2021 legislature directed the agency to approach the Interim Finance Committee for approval for the restructuring of the plan after regulatory changes to modify or increase fees were approved. During the 21-22 interim, the IFC approved the division's business plan to restructure the livestock inspection program at the December 9th, 2021 IFC meeting. In accordance with the business plan, the agency proposed increases to various livestock inspection fees in Regulation R 100-20, which was approved by the Legislative Commission on December 22, 2021. The following table outlines, on page 22, outlines these approved fee increases. While this budget's optimal reserve level is calculated using 45 days of operating expenditures, the reserve level for the livestock inspection budget must be monitored over a 5-year period, since the brand re-recording fees, one of the division's largest revenue sources, is collected once every 5 years. The division indicates the 2023 brand re-recording period opened in November of 2022, and through February 28, 2023, the agency has collected $638,000, which compares to actual collections of $403,685 in FY 2020. The brand re-recording fees will not be due again until FY 2028. During the March 7th budget hearing, the subcommittee asked the department how much additional revenue had been generated as a result of these approved fee increases in the livestock inspection program. The department testified that because the increase in fees went into effect in May, it is still difficult to determine the full impact of how much additional revenue the fee increases would generate. Following the budget hearing, fiscal staff requested the department to provide updated revenue and expenditure projections for the upcoming biennium. Because the revised re-recording fee was reset by the 2021 legislature and collected in FY 2023, the re-recording fees will not be collected again until 2028, as previously mentioned. However, the base budget includes $701,641 in revenue from the re-recording fee. The agency confirmed that this approximately $701,000 was erroneously included in FY 2024 and confirmed that it should be eliminated. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment as reflected in the adjustment table on page 25 of this document to eliminate re-recording fee revenue of $701,461 in FY 2024 to align the projected revenue in the governor's recommended budget with the updated revenue projections provided by the agency following the March 7th budget hearing. With updated revenue and expenditure adjustments, inclusive of all noted technical adjustments, the ending reserve balances are estimated to be $600,348 for FY 2024 and $474,418 for FY 2025 for the livestock inspection budget, which equates to approximately 121 days of operating expenditures in reserve in FY 2024 and 96 days of operating expenditure in reserve in FY 2025. While this budget, as recommended and revised by the noted technical adjustments, appears to have sufficient reserves through the end of 2025, the declining operating reserves contribute to the long-term financial solvency concerns of this budget. Additionally, this budget may have difficulty funding compensation considerations discussed at the March 30th, 2023 joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance. During that meeting, possible consideration was identified to setting aside funding for agencies that may be unable to fund the recommended cost of living adjustments as recommended by the governor or compensation considerations as legislatively approved. Given the continued uncertainty of the agency's reserve, the subcommittee may wish to issue Another letter of intent directing the agency to report to the interim finance committee every 6 months on the status of its reserves, and if reserves fall below 60 days of operating expenditures, request for the agency to provide the interim finance committee with its plan to ensure the account will remain solvent. Does the subcommittee wish to issue a letter of intent directing the agency to report to the interim finance committee every 6 months on the status of its reserves, and if reserves fall below 60 days of operating expenditures, request for the agency to provide the interim finance committee with a plan to ensure the account will remain solvent? And does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the noted technical adjustment to eliminate re-recording fees of $701,641 in FY 2024, which were erroneously included in the governor's recommended budget?
Thank you for that. So just a quick question to the agency. Do you guys have you been working on a plan to deal with the declining operating reserves?
Madam Chair, Director Goycochea for the record. And yes, and as noted, the new fee structure went in May 1st of last year. And so we are almost exactly at 1 year. And so we'll be able to analyze that. We have been keeping a close eye on it. And I can say that without including the sale barn revenue in that, we're at about $60,000 over where we were for the exact same 365-day period before those new fees went in. So we are fairly confident that the new fee structure is going to work, and obviously the re-recording fee has given us a substantial boost as well.
Thank you for that, because I guess the question that I had was the switch from the 4-year to the 5-year. Is that actually sustainable, and does that make sense, really?
Yes, ma'am. Director Goycochea for the record. And yeah, we do believe that it makes sense. I won't talk in the past tense, as I was not here when that decision was made, but it does make sense. It makes sense to the industry. They are supportive. And again, with the fee structure of the everyday inspections going on and that additional $50 at the front, we do feel confident that we will be able to carry those reserves out for the 5-year period.
So, and then final question, how many inspections do you have left?
Inspections or brand, because we really don't know on the inspections.
Okay.
Now, brand renewals that still need to come in for the year?
Thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record. As of today, we collected $674,600 for the re-recordings, and we have outstanding $145,000 to collect as of today, which brings us to approximately $820,000, which is definitely higher than originally anticipated.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so, Senator Goycochea.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I've just got a couple of quick questions. The 30 intermittent brand inspector positions, now again, even though they're scheduled for a 10-hour week, they are employees. They are not eligible for time and a half. Is that correct?
Senator Goycochea, Director Goycochea, for the record, yes, that is correct. They are .49 full-time equivalent employees, and they are not eligible for time and a half.
Yeah, my concern would be because it is very seasonal, the inspection, you know, spring and fall, you get additional loads. I would hate to see some of these inspectors going over the 40-hour week, even though they're only scheduled at 10 and they are intermittent. But if they went to time and a half, that would in fact, yeah, it would really erode the reserve. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, and the fact that you do have the 30 almost in place.
Okay, so let me go back, and Senator, if I can, and make sure, Director Goycochea, for the record, you're talking the state employees, or are you talking about the contract manpower employees? You're talking about the 30 state employees.
I'm talking about the 30 state employees, yes.
I'll get Administrator Ferris to come down and address that question, because we do have the 2 buckets there.
Good morning. For the record, Doug Ferris, Administrator for Division of Animal Industry. In response to the Senator's question, they are intermittent employees, .49 FTEs. However, they can incur overtime if they do work over 40 hours in a week, 1 week pay period. So there is the potential to do that. I can say right now, within the last, since we onboarded all the state employees, we've actually had, I believe, 2 of them that qualified for that, and that's because they work at the livestock, the public livestock auction yards. Other than that, we haven't had any others. And in addition to that, we have received previous approval for the 3 full-time positions, and we're actually recruiting those right now and doing interviews in the next 2 weeks. So that will put a full-time state employee in the Fallon in the western area, and also a full-time state employee in the northern Nevada area, which those will be 40-hour-a-week employees, so they'll be able to take some of that off of the part-time employees.
So they would be available to cover some of the other intermittent in case you were getting too much of a load. Now, your contract brand inspectors, how many of them you anticipate utilizing? You are going to utilize them, contract inspectors as well.
For the record, Doug Ferris, yes, we currently are utilizing, we have 20 contracted brand inspectors as well, or positions open. I believe 18 of those are full, and we are recruiting for 2 others right now. So we'll have the 30 state intermittent, the 3 full-time, and 20 contracted positions.
And again, the 20 contract inspectors are not eligible for overtime. And so if you start getting into a crunch there, you would rely more on the contract inspectors.
For the record, Doug Ferris, that's correct.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. All right, any additional discussion? So with that, I will take a motion on issuing the letter of intent for the agency to report to the IFC every 6 months on the status of reserves, and if it reserves falls below 60 days of operating expenditure, and request for the agency to provide IFC with a plan to ensure the account will remain solvent, and have the subcommittee recommend the approval of the noted technical adjustment to eliminate re-recording fees of $701,641 in FY24 in governor's recommended budget. So with that, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, this decision unit passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. There are 6 other closing items. Closing item 5 is a technical adjustment to the cost of the Nevada Shared Radio System. The Nevada Department of Transportation is in process of replacing the Nevada Shared Radio System, with the governor recommending continued funding for the project in the 23-25 biennium. This replacement would largely be funded with one-time highway funds and general fund appropriations, as well as the cost allocation revenue from these fee-funded budgets that utilize the system. Although positions in this budget utilize the radio, the cost allocation expenditure does not align with NDOT's projection included in the executive budget for this budget. Accordingly, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment as shown in the adjustment table on the following page to reflect cost allocation expenditures of $91,521 in FY 2024 and $63,586 in FY 2025 to align the expenditure authority with NDOT's projected costs in the 23-25 biennium. In other item 6, the governor's recommended budget includes benefit costs of $246,180 in FY 2024 and $340,860 in FY 2025 for 30 intermittent brand inspector positions. The correct total for these benefit costs is $7,650 in FY 2024 and $7,740 in FY 2025, which results in a cost reduction and corresponding increase to reserves of approximately $238,000 in FY 2024 and approximately $333,000 in FY 2025. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment as shown in the adjustment table on the following page to reduce funding for benefit costs for the 30 intermittent brand inspector positions by $238,530 in FY 2024 and $330,120 in FY 2025. Both the Governor's Finance Office and agency concur with this technical adjustment. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 4 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other items 5 and 6 be closed with the noted technical adjustments. Fiscal staff requests authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you for that. Any discussion on this decision unit? Seeing no discussion, I will accept a motion for the recommendation of other closing items 1 through 4 as recommended by the governor, and other closing items 5 and 6 to be closed with noted technical adjustments, and fiscal staff to have the authority to make technical adjustments as necessary. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, a second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So this decision unit passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston for the record. Page 27 starts the section of staff closed budgets. As a reminder, similar to previous biennia, staff closed budgets are those budgets with no significant major issues identified, nor significant informational items. These budgets have not been previously heard by the subcommittee, and fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the closings of these budgets. Page 49 of the packet contains the summary page with a singular motion for these staff closed budgets. As noted, page 27 starts the staff closed budget with budget account 4540, Plant Health and Quarantine Services. This budget provides entomology and plant pathology programs which detect, eradicate, and prevent entry of plant diseases, physiological plant disorders, pests, and noxious weeds, and protects crops, livestock, public health, wildlife, and water quality, and supports the drought initiative. There are no major closing issues. There are 2 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page of the closing packet, and I'm happy to pause for questions or continue on.
Any questions on this? Seeing none, you go ahead.
Thank you. Budget account 4552, Plant Disease Noxious Weed Control. This budget provides the control of fire ants, ash borer, vertebrate pests, and noxious weeds, the surveying of plant pathology, nematode, gypsy moth, and nursery pests, cost sharing of cooperative weed management, and sub-grants to the University of California, Davis for a plant pathology lab. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. The 4th item, the governor's recommended budget included partial funding in this budget account to support a contract IT technician 6 position as previously heard in budget account 4554. As approved in that budget, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment in this budget to decrease contract expenditures by $13,398 in FY 2024 and $17,591 in FY 2025, with a corresponding increase to reserves in each year. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. And I'm happy to pause for questions or continue.
Are there any questions on this? Seeing no questions, we will move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Budget account 4541, commercial feed. Per statute, fee revenues deposited in the commercial feed budget must be used to pay the cost to administer commercial feed statutes, including the cost of inspection, sampling, and analysis of commercial feed, which is distributed or intended for distribution for use as feed or mixing in feed. There are no major closing issues. There is 1 other closing item. Closing recommendations for this budget are included in the summary page in the closing packet. Happy to pause for questions or continue.
Any questions on this? Seeing no questions, we will move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Budget account 4600, predatory animal and rodent control. This budget, or predatory animal and rodent control, cooperates with the United States Department of Agriculture to control predatory animals, crop-destroying birds and rodents. The Predatory Animal and Rodent Control and the USDA collectively form the Nevada Wildlife Services Program, which works alongside the Nevada Department of Wildlife to prevent predation damage. There are no major closing issues. There are 3 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. I'm happy to pause for questions or continue.
Members, any questions on this budget? Seeing no questions, let's move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Budget account 4551, measurement standards. The division licenses, tests, and verifies the accuracy of all commercial weighing and measuring devices, and maintains the metrology lab, which houses the state standards for mass, length, and volume, and certifies the field standards used by weights and measured standards inspectors and registered service agents. The division also obtains motor fuel samples and verifies fuel quality. There are no major closing issues. There are 9 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. I'm happy to pause for questions or continue.
Members, any questions on this budget? Seeing no questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Budget account 2691, Nutrition Education Programs. This budget receives federal funding for various student nutrition programs authorized by the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010, including the National School Lunch Program, the School Breakfast Program, the Summer Food Service Program, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, the Special Milk Program, and the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. There are no major closing issues. In regard to the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds table, as noted below, excuse me. The table reflects that there is a total of $52.8 million in the projected budget for FY 2024. $24.6 million of this would be from carry forward from the FY 23 allowed expenditures, and as well as the $28.1 million was recommended in the governor's recommended budget. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to transfer the $28.2 million from reserve to the ARPA Universal School Meals Program expenditure category in FY 2024. There are 4 other closing items. In closing item 4, fiscal staff recommends a base budget technical adjustment to modify an account technician 1 position, grade 30, step 1, to a grade 30, step 7, to reflect the correct salary cost of the existing employee in this position. The adjustment increases the salary and associated cost by $12,952 in FY 2024 and $13,674 in FY 2025. The agency and the Governor's Office of Finance concur with this technical adjustment. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. Happy to pause for questions.
Thank you for that. So I still wanted to know how much is in the summer food service program. Were you able to find that out?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not get a chance. I reached out to the agency last night, but as it was after 5 o'clock, I believe they should be able to provide an answer shortly, later
Is this
today,
the
hopefully.
agency?
That's
No.
correct.
So, can you identify how much money is left in the summer food service program?
Madam Chair, Mark Markovich, for the record, can you please clarify the question?
So in the National School Lunch Program, in our documents, it says that it has the school breakfast program, the summer food service program, and then the child and adult care food program. So there was approved allocation of $75 million in '23, and then there's carryover for '24 of $24,676,000, but I don't know what the breakout is for summer school food.
Madam Chair, for the record, Mark Markovich, thank you for your question. I believe you're referring to ARPA Universal School Meal. That is the program that had allocated $75,900,000 in fiscal year '23. As of today, we expended $35,945,592. 24+ million will be carried to the '24 fiscal year. And the reason why you don't see higher expenditure is due to timely submission of the claims from the school districts. So basically, the way these universal school meal claims and any school meal claims work, we are processing them twice a month. We are processing them on the first day of the month, and we are processing them on a 16th day of the month or the first business day after that. So schools do have a 60-day time window to submit these claims. So they are not really following bi-weekly schedule. We're allowing for them to submit every 2 weeks as they gather information. So We do expect these claims will be arriving probably for this current fiscal year throughout July. We did reach out to the schools, our program staff reached out to the schools and asked if they can provide all of their billing by July 21st so we can successfully close the fiscal year, pay everybody, and bring the federal funds in.
Thank you for that. So with that July 21st deadline, does that allow for this money to be used for a summer school program and to feed children?
For the record, Marko Markovic, Madam Chair, this is universal school meal. This is not related to a summer food program. We have a different grants for the summer food program.
You have grants for the summer food program?
It's a different federal funds.
How much is that?
It is current authority of $1,513,897 with expended $44,629.93 as of today.
So that's the total. Are you expecting any additional grant funds to come in to cover this particular summer?
Thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record, yes, these ongoing grants entitlements are actually based on our expenditures. So we do submit reports to the federal government quarterly for our expenditures, and based off of those expenses, federal government allocates additional funds for the school programs. The same instance applies to our National School Lunch and our National School Breakfast. We do receive multiple awards throughout the year or multiple entitlements throughout the year. Last year we had, I believe, 11 notices of award for the National School Lunch due to these quarterly submissions of the reports plus anything that federal government deems necessary as an increase in funding due to increasing cost.
So let me just get this right, because I have this quick question. So basically, the schools can expend, and then they'll go for reimbursement to the Department of Ag for what they expended for the summer school program, and then you will then apply for federal dollars and say that, you know, they had 20,000 kids do summer school and they fed 20,000 kids, and here's the bill. How does it work?
So thank you for your question, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record. It's a little bit lengthy process. I can give you the example of instance that occurred recently. We had a couple of schools that qualify for additional funding based on their 2021 expenditures. Given that we are currently in the 2023, you would not expect that the federal government would reimburse something like that. However, federal government did, in fact, reopen 21 grant to allow for additional billing to be submitted to them so they can reimburse state of Nevada, so we can reimburse schools for additional funds that they qualify for.
Okay, thank you for that. And so there are never any instances where a school is running summer school and not feeding children?
For the record, Marko Markovic, thank you, Madam Chair. No, as far as we know, there is no instances that children are hungry during the summer.
Thank you for that.
Madam Chair, if I may add into that as the director, that the summer school food program is not associated with summer school. So you don't have to be in school in order to receive that. I want to be clear on that. It's not for schools that are going to class during the summer.
Thank you for that. I was trying to get at an issue around a summer school program where they were saying that not being able to feed children during actual summer school, if summer school was created or mandated. And so I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper around where are there dollars to feed children if a summer school program was to be created by a district. That's what I'm really aiming at. And it looks like it's possible because the school can say, I'm doing X, and then ask to be reimbursed for programs that they may run during the summer, whether or not it's enrichment or other, correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Marko Markovic, for the record. Yes, in a way. So the summer food program is not necessarily funding the schools for that program. It funds institutions that are providing healthy meals to the students that are not in a summer school during the school recess.
But an institution can be CCSD.
Madam Chair, the Director, Goyka Chair, for the record, yes, it could be a school, local government agencies, other nonprofits, faith-based, groups, it could be any of them.
Okay.
And again, it's for when school is out. That is what we're doing.
I get it, but I'm just trying to make sure that there's no exclusion to an actual school entity such as CCSD.
For the record, Madam Chair, Mark Markovic, you are correct. There is no exclusions. Anybody is eligible to apply for summer food funds. So if the school district decides to provide the school meals during the summer break, yes, they can do that, and we'll work with them.
And then one final question. Do you have a history of them applying for money for the summer for programs?
Madam Chair, for the record, Marko Markovic, I do not have that information at the moment. However, I can provide that information back to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and there has been some dialogue going on in this body as well. So you're saying any agency. So are you telling me a charter school, Lennon, could in fact apply to your agency for a lunch program through their summer school? I think you said any agency, so I want to know if a charter school can in fact apply.
Senator Goycochea, Director Goycochea, for the record, yes, that is correct. Any entity may.
Thank you. You've been mighty helpful. I'm all just trying to dig it all out and find out the truth. All right then, so you never know what Department of Ag can bring you. All right then, so with that, we will move to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicolette Johnston. Next budget account is Budget Account 1362, Commodity Foods Distribution Program. This is on page 41 of the closing packet. This budget administers the distribution of food received from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Commodity Food Program provides USDA commodity foods to schools, senior centers, Indian reservations, food banks, and other eligible agencies and individuals in Nevada. There are no major closing issues. There are 3 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. I'm happy to pause for questions or to continue.
Are there any questions on the commodity program? Okay, seeing none, next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next budget account is 4470, Dairy Fund. This budget is responsible for licensing and regulating product distributors and enforcing price stabilization and marketing plans for various dairy products. The department inspects, licenses, and regulates all segments involved in the production and sale of dairy products to Nevada consumers from farm-level production through sales to the consumer. There are no major closing issues, and there are 5 other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet. I'm happy to pause for questions or continue on.
Any questions on this budget item? Seeing none, next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Budget account 4557, Livestock Enforcement. This budget account was created to account for the revenues and expenditures for the department's agriculture enforcement officers and is the regulatory arm of the Animal Industry Division. The peace officer's primary focus is the protection and public safety, protection of livestock owners from theft or loss of livestock, enforcement of all agricultural laws, and livestock identification. There are no major closing issues. There are 4 other closing items. Other item 4 is the recommendation for general fund appropriations of $44,481 in FY 2024 and $45,401 in FY 2025 to fund a 2-grade increase for 4 agriculture police officer 2 positions and 1 agriculture police officer 3 position. This recommendation will be considered separately at a later date when the joint subcommittees determine statewide compensation issues. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet, and I'm happy to pause for questions.
Any questions on this item? Okay, seeing no questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This takes us to our summary page on page 49. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the following budgets. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budgets that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with the other identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor with the technical adjustments noted and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 4540, Plant Health and Quarantine Services. Budget Account 4552, Pest, Plant Disease, Noxious Weed Control, including technical adjustments noted for other closing item 4, contingent upon the approval of Budget Amendment A231354554 in Budget Account 4554, Administrative Services. Budget Account 4541, Commercial Feed and Other Closing Item 1 be closed contingent upon approval of Decision Unit E 815 in Budget Account 4550, Veterinary Medical Services. Budget Account 4600, Predatory Animal and Rodent Control and Other Closing Item 2 be closed contingent upon approval of Decision Unit E 815 in Budget Account 4550, Veterinary Medical Services. Budget Account 4551, Measurement Standards. Budget Account 2691, Nutrition Education Programs, including technical adjustments noted for the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds, and other closing item 4. Budget Account 1362, Commodity Foods Distribution Program. Budget Account 4470, Dairy Fund, and other closing item 2 be closed contingent upon approval of Decision Unit E 815 in Budget Account 4550, Veterinary Medical Services. And Budget Account 4557, Livestock Enforcement, other closing item 2 be closed contingent upon approval of Decision Unit E 815 and Budget Account 4550, Veterinary Medical Services, and other closing item 4 be closed contingent upon the approval of the statewide compensation decision unit to be heard by the subcommittee at a later date.
Okay, thank you for that. So I will accept a motion for fiscal staff recommendation to close as recommended by the governor with the technical adjustments and request authority for the staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary for these 9 budgets. So I have a first from Assemblywoman Peters, second from Senator Harris. Any discussion on the motion? So seeing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, these budgets pass. All right, so that ends our business for the General Government Subcommittee, and I will go ahead and open up for public comment. Thank you, Department of Agriculture, for sitting in the hot seats. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so we'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone in Carson City for public comment? Seeing none, I don't see anyone in Vegas. VPS, is there anyone on the line for public comment?
Public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
All right, so that concludes our business. Senate joint is adjourned.